Hello, lovely. Thank you for all for attending today. That's great that you're here in person. Thank you so much. I think, oh, what's that going on? Okay, so I just want to make sure that I am showing my slides because I can't see them. Can everybody see my slides? Give us a thumbs up. Fantastic. That's great. So let's start the slide show now. So yes, we are recording and you will get a copy of the slides and you'll get a copy of the recording to all those who register for my free training. It will also appear in my VIP circle area, of which there's a special recording section so that you can go back and listen to it at any time. In that particular space, I will also put some top tips, some other bits and pieces in there in that post, so that keeps you absolutely on track. So I've done a number of these now. They are navigating the changes to the EYFS, which is obviously really important and something that we're all continuing to focus on. And you all have the EYFS now. I hope you have got a copy. I am trying to arrange some printing because I really like the A5. I don't know if anybody else does, but I really like the sort of A5 version because I find it really helpful. I give it to clients and I use it a lot myself. So I'm trying to organise some printing around that and obviously keeping those costs to an absolute minimum. Part of what I do as an early years consultant and trainer is to focus on safeguarding and child protection and making sure that you can interpret that particular section of the EYFS so that you can continue to be the best that you can be. I am a leading authority in the EYFS. Very sadly, I love it. I love reading it. I love interpreting it. I love all the individual nuances and even click on the links. So it's something that I'm very familiar with, and I am currently working on a platform to help you audit that to make sure that you can be the best that you can be as well, in line with the EYFS. But I'll tell you a bit more about that because you are on my email list and you'll be the first to know. So, welcome to this training. This is the 26th of July, and I hope you are either, if you are term time only, that you're enjoying your break, and if you're not, keep going. It's a very exciting time being outside and learning in the summertime, so it's great. So, if you don't know me, my name is Alison Featherby. I have Alison Featherby Learning and Development. I help and support providers, group providers, deliver the EYFS. I have an email list. Hopefully, you're on my email list. My training is only available to my email list, so do stay on my email list and read my emails. I have a membership area with the VIP circle. A couple of you here today are on that, so I look forward to working with you virtually as your virtual consultant. I am just about to launch something called EYFS Insight, which is going to be a place or a platform where you can monitor your adherence to the EYFS with some lots of ideas, but also so that you can track your progress and continually develop. I am also a external mentor for the EYT courses for the University of Sussex and the University of Brighton. I've been in early years for over 40 years and a wide range of knowledge and experience. So let's start with the end in mind. Those, if you've registered, as we've explained, you're going to get a comprehensive email after this and the PowerPoint and the recording. If you're here in person, in the chat, I will put a link to your freebie, which I think is an induction checklist today. So I'll do that towards the end of the training. We are recording. We've had a little pre-chat, and then afterwards, I'm going to stop recording, and then please stay on the line, and we can absolutely be open for questions. I'm going to keep an eye on the time, so that we don't overrun, because I know I've certainly got a call, and I know that time is very precious. So the new version is out and it will be in place from September the 1st, which I'm sure you all know. There's a number of changes, particularly in the safeguarding reforms. There isn't many huge changes at all in Section 1 or Section 2. They are all mainly safeguarding reform trainings, and some of the links have changed as well. Um, that is a little timeline. The changes have been made as a result of the EYFS always get updated regularly, which I think is important to know. One important top tip is know where you are right here, right now. I will talk about this in the slides upcoming, but try at where at all possible is know where you are right here, right now, with regards to the changes, and make small steps to make any changes that you need to, because everybody's obviously unique and in individual space. These two slides are about the difference between safeguarding and child protection. So we safeguard all children, and it moves to child protection when we're worried or concerned about a child. And I think that's an important thing when we're talking about training today, is to really consider that and make sure that everyone really fully understands that. Child protection, that's the definition that's in working together to safeguard children. As we're talking about training today, there's a number of documents, just going to make a note of that, that you probably do need to read and refer to. And that can all be seen as training, if you're a DSL or if you're a manager or if you're in a lead position. So I will send links to all the documents that you need to be familiar with as well, but you need to know where they are on your computer. And lots of those links are, of course, in the EYFS in the footnotes. And I do urge you all to read the footnotes, not just the EYFS. There are key changes mainly around safer recruitment. So these are the slides that we're going to zoom through. So yep, safer recruitment, child absences is changes there. We have safeguarding training Annex C. So that's at the back of the EYFS. And we won't be talking about Annex C training in this training today. This is really about how you deliver training and how you support your team. But just to make sure that you look at Annex C in the back of the EYFS, and any training that you deliver needs to follow that Annex C now, which is actually quite comprehensive. I've written Annex C training. Really and truly, it should be 6 hour training. I do deliver it really, really quickly in 3 hours, but I really do think that it's 6 hour training to allow enough time for discussion, to allow enough time for activities, and for it to really go in. So we're not going to be talking about the individual elements of that Annex C training today. We're going to be talking about training its broadest terms and how you support your team. Training, of course, must be for all your team, and especially when we're thinking about safeguarding training for babies and those youngest, more vulnerable children as well. Four key points to remember around your training and actually around competency, which is very, very important. And people know, if they know me, they know I always talk about competency. So you want your team, and which is why I like to start with the end in mind, to always be alert. You want them to question behaviour. You want them to be able to ask for help, and you want them to be able to know who to refer to, and whose role it is and who does the referral, and what, when you refer, what do these people do as a result of the information. Now, the reason that people need to know those 4 stages, and if you don't know, those 4 stages are in what to do if you're worried a child is being abused. That particular document hasn't been updated since 2015. I have persistently asked the Department for Education to have a look at that, but it's still it's those 4 terms are still very valid. So do make sure whatever training you're doing, need to make your team be alert to question behaviour. Now, there's many trainings that could happen within that questioning behaviour slide. I deliver training around sexualized behavior, for example, behavior changes. I would definitely do training around the Leuven scales, if you're going to deliver that, because children's behavior tells us something. All behavior tells us something. That ask for help, I think, is really important because you know your team really well. And that ability to ask for help can be quite difficult for some people. So do make sure, as part of getting to know your team, as part of that recruitment process, you feel really sure that they have the belief that they'll ask for help if they need it. And that's quite important. And all those people, different ways of referring, will all be defined in your policy as well. So make sure that any training that you consider covers those four elements. DSL training, they should, if we're talking, hi Stuart, if we're talking about referral, people need to know the roles and responsibilities of the designated safeguarding lead in your setting. Not only that, your safeguarding designated safeguarding lead needs to know that as well. Now, if people know the role and the responsibilities of the safeguarding lead and they're trained in that, they are much more likely to refer and they're much more likely to do what's called escalation, which is question the behaviour of the designated safeguarding lead if they don't either share that they followed that up on a need to know basis, or take action, particularly if it's around something that's whistleblowing. So it may be that someone's in the setting, and somebody is brought to you questioning someone else's behavior, and if they don't feel that your designated safeguarding lead has dealt with that appropriately, they should know who to escalate that to. So who is line managing that, say, designated safeguarding lead, and not escalating it to a friend, someone at home, someone on the bus, etc., etc. Knowing who to escalate concerns to is really important part of what you do. Um, so you're going to have a number of policies, and what it says now in obviously safer eating as well, toileting and privacy, and whistleblowing. I'll probably do a session on whistleblowing and pediatric first aid. So this is what we're going to be talking about today, which is this particular section at the bottom of 2025 3.6 that says detail of how safeguarding training is delivered and how practitioners are supported to put this in practice. So just one line there, and you all know as well as I do that actually there's a lot to unpick in that one line, as there is in the all 55 pages of the EYFS. There's an awful lot to unpick. It's not just about following this; it's about actually what does that actually mean for you, and that's what we're going to be exploring today. So really think about how safeguarding training is delivered in your setting right here and right now. I always find it really helpful to do a mind map. So get an old-fashioned piece of paper or a blackboard or a whiteboard and just dump on there how training is delivered currently in your setting. Training is being delivered in very different ways now. The way that we train is changing, because we know that, and I'm sure you might know as well. And if you've got any questions around this at the end, do save them. But from that one-off or click and collect training, as I like to call it, does that actually mean that someone is competent? It's all very well and good having a certificate, but actually knowing isn't implementation. It doesn't mean that that becomes part of practice. And actually, when we've done our training, that is where we put things into practice. And our training should help us and have ways forward at the end of it, or action plans at the end of it, or okay, what does this training mean from you, and how are you going to change your practice as a result of this training? So any training should have an opportunity at the end of this, so that that training can be embedded, so that people can continue that discussion and really think about those messages, and what that means for them in their practice, but also what it means for you in a provision. Now, you can only really get that sort of feedback and that sort of nuanced chat at the end of in-person training. I believe sometimes that one-off click and collect training, that's sort of online, that's recorded, doesn't give you an opportunity to do that. And that's an important thing to really remember. Oh, let's admit, Marsha, lovely. So that traditional training often involves single sessions and there's limited follow-up. We now understand that sustained, continued, reflective, sort of on the job training is much more effective. So really think about the culture of your provision and how you train literally every day. It doesn't have to be called training, it's just ongoing, continual professional development. Because we want to embed practice, and we do that through coaching, modeling, and positive feedback. And this really does lead to deeper, long lasting change. Learning doesn't stop at the end of a training session, it really does start. And as I said before, knowledge is an implementation. Knowing all of these things, knowing what we covered in the training, knowing the theorists is all well and good. But if we don't put it into practice, it's absolutely pointless. Very much we're thinking about implementation when we're thinking about training. We are not thinking about click and collect. So here's the option. You can most certainly deliver training by yourself. And do you know, I think that is the best way to do it. You are the expert. You know your team, you know your families, and you know where you are right here and right now. And that's a really important thing to do. We are very lucky because if you know what to work on, you can probably search it and come up with some guidance or some training that you could probably deliver to your team actually quite easily. But the key is that you need to know where you are right here and right now. And a good tip is that you are only really as good as your, I don't want to say weakest, but the person with the least amount of knowledge, the person with the least amount of skills, the person with the least amount of behaviors. So really think about that person, and you will all have those people in mind and you will know them because you are the experts. So your provision is only as good as that person. And that's an important thing to remember because your training needs to make a difference to that person. Everybody else, let's presume it may be a repeat, it might be a refresher, but it's very important that we start any training that we need to deliver with that person in mind. Um, So do make sure that you know that you're the expert. There's lots of different ways to bring together just a few training slides, 5 or 6 training slides. I would certainly use artificial intelligence or AI to do that. And if you've got any questions about AI, I'm happy to take those at the end of the call. And people know that I'm very passionate about that. And literally, training will be replaced by AI because it's already very good at doing that. I use it to support my training slides, and I absolutely know and want to empower you to use AI in a similar way. Where it's moving towards actually is there'll be probably links that own little AI links, and it will be like a chat. Any of you that have used AI currently, so it will be a pre-programmed chat around training that will ask you questions, will interact with you, etc., etc., and somebody will be literally interacting on the other end. And so training is really, really changing really rapidly, and I'm working on that as well. Um, so do make sure that you know that you're the expert and you can absolutely deliver training to your team. It could be in person, delivered by others, somebody like me or any trusted trainers that you've got. I think that that's an important thing to remember. And often in-person training delivered by someone else that says exactly the same messages as you do, sort of lands and hits in another way. So lots of people invest in somebody else delivering your training for you. Just make sure that it is from a trusted source, that you have a look at the slides before, that you make sure that you talk to somebody so that it's bespoke, so that they really understand where you and your team are right here and right now. And that's really important because the training needs to literally make a difference because the ROI or the return on investment really needs to be good for training because money is really precious to us all, as it should be right here, right now, especially. Um, Online live and interactive training as we're doing here is useful, can be really useful those for those really bite-sized things. I hope you find this training good today, and you can let me know at the end if you do. Sometimes you can access online recording that's recorded, and it or it may be that you have a learning platform where there's lots of different trainings. I have some of my clients have shown me some of those online training platforms, and I have to say I've been very disappointed about the content. It's been old content, particularly one which referred to Every Child Matters. And those of you that have been in the game for a long time will know that Every Child Matters was a government initiative many, many years ago. So if you are have a learning platform, you must look at all the trainings that you're sharing with your team, because if you don't, you have no idea what they're being taught. It can be useful as part of induction, but really training is much more broader than that. But so do if you've got a training platform, do make sure that you look at that training and do make sure that it's up to date and it's what you want it to be. So the second part of that one line that we're talking about, who knew there would be so much information, is about supported to put into practice. Not everybody takes to practice like a duck to water, hence my slide. So let's explore that bit. So, embedding safeguarding in your settings culture, the first stage is building the knowledge. So, what does effective safeguarding training look like? Do make sure that you have a really good idea of what that looks like. We have the EYFS with Annex C to help us with that. But as we all know, every single bullet point in Annex C needs exploring. There needs systems and processes around it. It needs policies and procedures. It needs bullet points. It needs explaining. It needs to be an induction. It needs to be in your staff code of conduct. So every single tiny nuanced bit of that NXC training needs to be unpicked. So make sure that you closely look at that, put one of those bullet points in the middle of a page and try and mind map that, and really consider where you are right here, right now. All staff must receive safe recruitment, and that's really important because that's where the training journey starts. That's where the continued professional development starts, and it may be quite eye-opening for people who have gone through your recruitment process because it is so robust. Hopefully, I have a safer recruitment package that can help you with that, and there will be training in the VIP around that. But make sure that your recruitment not only adheres to the EYFS because it sends out so many messages about safeguarding and child protection, and then your induction training as a result of recruiting somebody really starts there. I do always suggest to have what's called a starting point observation. I've put my new starting point observation in the VIP. I think I will check that. And I've written that in line with the EYFS. And that's an opportunity to say, what do you, let's take observation, assessment, and planning, for example, at the beginning of that particular starting point supervision. What's your interpretation of observation and assessment and planning? Because that gives somebody that's new to you an opportunity to explore further where they are right here, right now. What you want when you get new members of the team is somebody to be adaptable, because unlearning is just as important as learning. And sometimes people have either different practices, different ways of doing things, and you need to have a rich professional discussion around that so that you can you know where they are at and how you need to develop and to deepen their practice to bring them up to your standards. Quality is really hard to define, and we're all striving towards that, but have some idea of what quality means to you in your provision, and you could weave that into a vision around your training if you wanted to. So, training must be regularly updated and clearly understood by all. So, do build some training slides, and that would be really useful. And you can absolutely do that really quickly using PowerPoint or Canva or anything you like, really. So, but always when some new information comes into you, either through one of my newsletters or through something a scenario that's happened or through something that from the local authorities say, always think, okay, where can I change this training? And if you do it right here and right now, you will know that your training is constantly updated rather than thinking, oh my goodness, I need to start from scratch again because it's so out of date. So, safeguarding training is not a one off click and collect, as we've talked about. It should be continuous, embedded, and reviewed regularly, and always have that it could happen here approach because what we're talking about is safeguarding training. So, staff must also know the role of the designated safeguarding lead and how to escalate those concerns, which we've talked about. So, how confident are your team in applying their safeguarding policy in real life situations? And this is really key. It's not easy to write a safeguarding policy. I absolutely know that. I can certainly provide some guidance around the policy and what needs to be in there from a procedural point of view, because people need to go through that and take individual steps. Now, I've got many, many, many safeguarding scenarios in my head, real life situations that have really happened. And honestly, not one policy prepares you for these things that are happening right here, right now. Safeguarding situations are really changing in my experience, and they may be changing in your experience too. And sometimes obviously our policy can't incorporate all of the different situations, but if you remember those core terms, being alert, questioning behavior, asking for help, referring, then actually what you really want is your team to be alert all of the time and having those conversations about different safeguarding scenarios that have either happened to you or happened to somebody you know, or you've got some scenarios from somewhere is an opportunity to learn and explore. Obviously, I bring that into my training, but you will have amazing, very interesting, in-depth scenarios that you can use and regularly refer to, and they've already happened. And so think back to all those particular situations because and weave them into your own training because it will make it real, will make it easier to understand. Never make up a scenario. You honestly don't need to, because it just doesn't flow. It just doesn't work. So I have obviously got safeguarding scenarios, but I use those in my training. Uh, so building on the knowledge, some top tips here. So this is the zone of proximal development slide I always weave into my training and a slide I really love. So this goes back to knowing your team. So that's what they can do independently in the middle in that dark circle. In the zone of proximal development, which hopefully we're all familiar with from Vygotsky, and obviously this is refers to children, but it also refers to our learning. In that zone of proximal development, we need to provide about 20% of challenge. Now, that's really important not only for children, but our training needs to be pitched to give 20% of challenge. And that's why it's important that you can absolutely do your own training, because you just take it up one notch. Remember, for that person who has the least amount of knowledge, the least amount of skills. And if you can take that person up 20%, I absolutely promise you there will be amount of challenge in the other the everybody else who's there as well. But remember, don't overload. So if you are writing your own training, don't overload your team. Many people make the mistake of trying to cram too much into a staff meeting or into a training session, and I know that I'm trying to do that now. But so make sure that you don't overload everybody, which is really important thing to remember. You've always got to leave time for discussion at the end, and sometimes exploring one tiny key message is really important. So, like I'm doing today, I'm really just drilling down on training and how you support your team. One sentence in the EYFS. So really drill down would be the message, because that in that way you're going to build that knowledge and move your team forward. And repeat, repeat, repeat. You have all probably read the safeguarding reforms. You've probably read the posts. You're probably on different people's email lists, and you're watching social media, and you're getting lots of messages from lots of different points of view. And that's really important. It's the perspectives that you need to, in order for something to really sit and really go in. And you take a little bit of this, what this person said, a little bit of reading, a little bit of listening, a little bit of other people's points of view, and then you come to your own conclusions. What does that mean for my provision, my setting, and my team? So don't be afraid of repeat, repeat, repeat. Everybody needs that, including me for sure. So embedding safeguarding in your settings culture, which is really what we're aiming to do. And this slide is about motivating your team. I'm absolutely not going to read every single bit of it, but the main message is that you need a vision. Your team need to work towards your vision. So if you haven't done anything lately, just have a look at your vision and your values. And I'll send you a link to my values document as well. Um, because sometimes you can refresh that at the beginning of the term, because everybody needs to know that you're working towards a vision. It's a vision that's in that 20% of the zone of proximal development. It's just slightly out of everybody's reach, but this is what we're working towards. A great, well-crafted vision is really, really important, because that's why we jump out of bed in the morning. That's why we do what we do. Um, do recognize and celebrate progress. However you do that is really important. I am personally not a big fan of the monetary value. I'm not a big fan of, come and work with us and we'll give you £1,000 starting fee. I'm not a big fan of that, but recognizing and celebrating progress can happen in many, many different ways. Um, what we know that people need right here, right now, is things around well-being, things that are personal to them, things that are community driven. So it could be a meal out for everybody, gets them a chance to talk. Whatever you decide to do, you know your team best and you decide. Lead by example. Do be the best that you can possibly be all of the time. Stay calm under pressure, show enthusiasm yourself, and be really present. A motivated team comes from a motivated adult, and that's really, really important. So make sure that you know your senior team and those people with a bit of a spark, those people that are really, really hell bent on motivating the team. Prioritize relationships. Relationships are everything in early years, and that connection is so important. So have a real good think about where you are right here, right now, around those relationships, because they can be quite complicated. And a safeguarding culture is really, really embedded in those relationships that people have with each other, with you, and with the families. So have a look at that. Create a safe space for voice, encourage open dialogue, welcome feedback, and make sure that you give your team an opportunity to do a survey, which I think is a really important thing to do. It's not easy having people criticize you or giving you feedback, but it absolutely has to happen in order to move forward. And if you are providing supervision and you're, saying something good, giving some feedback about something to work on, and then saying something good again, It's called a sandwich. Then do make sure that you take a bit of your own medicine as well, which is why I call myself a critical friend. So if anybody wants a critical friend, I'm always very happy to provide you with one of those sandwiches that helps you to move forward as well. Do think about personal growth as well as professional growth. We are all continuing to learn, and that personal growth is really important around motivation. I do know in as I deliver safe supervision training, if things are good in your setting and they're not so good at home, then that things will be okay. If things are really good at home and not so good in your setting, then you can really cope as an individual. But if things aren't great in your setting and there's a lot of pressure, a lot of workload, a lot of stress and anxiety, and your culture is not great, and things aren't good at home, that is completely where you crash from a personal point of view as well. So always be really mindful of that, and knowing your team, and that foster that team belonging. Honestly, that investment in your team, where you celebrate and talk to each other, really will pay off. We all know that recruitment is really, really expensive, from not only from a training point of view, but from an individual point of view. So motivating your team is a really good investment in their future and your future. So embedding safeguarding in your settings culture, this is around developing skills. So skill acquisition, we're all continuing to learn skills, but actually you can only acquire new skills if that skill is broken down, if it's presented in a way that unpicks it, and then people can relate to that skill and think, yeah, actually, I could read a book with a movable face. I can, okay, let me watch you read a book with a movable face and lots of intonation and lots of oohs and ahs, and maybe do some joint observations with people. That's all training, all part of how you support your team. The standard operating procedure is an absolute gift. So you'll have a policy, you'll have procedures, and there's always gaps between one bullet point and another procedural bullet point, and fill that with a standard operating procedure. This breaks down either individual things to do or individual skills that your team need. And it could be that there's a break between one particular standard operating procedure and another, and that's where you need to close the gap. Training and support is all around closing the gaps, and you need to know where those gaps are, and help people to continually move forward. And they can only really do that if those gaps and that standard operating procedure is really clearly identified. If you can't explain it simply to others, you don't understand it well enough. Now, nobody knows that more than me. And I obviously love delivering training, and it is a bit of a skill. It comes with knowledge and experience and probably a bit of age. But really, everybody that joins you, no matter how young they are, needs to explain something to someone else. And this is why the buddy system works. This is why setting up systems where people support each other really works. Watch and listen how someone explains your safeguarding policy to someone else. Then you will absolutely know that they understand it. Now, you might think you're going to put people in a difficult position to do that, but if they can't do that, they're not going to be able to ask for help. And it's really, really important that you give your team opportunities to explain your policies and procedures to someone else, because then you know they know it well enough. And there's something called, if you teach it to someone else, you learn it again. And honestly, if you allow people opportunities to do that, they will learn it more deeply, and help them to, think, actually, how could I have done that a bit better? So hopefully that will help too. So embedding safeguarding in your settings culture, deepening that practice. You can use visual clues, posters, flashcards. I I'm not gonna say I love it, but when you go to someone's toilet and you're visiting a setting, and there when you're sitting on the toilet is a lovely flow chart about the laddo and about who to refer to. Sometimes I find that really useful. Everybody does it in a different way. Sometimes that comes from the local authority, but you can absolutely make your own up. So those visual clues, I think, are really important around the room. I certainly need them. You ask your team if they need them, and they'll probably say yes. So keep some of those key messages visible for everyone. Personally, I'm not a big fan of the lanyard, the thing that's around your neck that weighs you down because you're loading it up with more and more information. For me, I think your what you know and understand should be in your heart. A visual clue on the wall is probably a nice thing, but really having the signs and indicators of abuse around your neck absolutely is an indicator to me that people don't actually know. And once they do know, it really does stay with them in their heart. So I'm not a big fan of the lanyard, but I'm open to questions around that. So use coaching questions to support continued professional development. What did you notice? What impact did you have on the child? Sometimes we're very quick to give people all of the answers, and it doesn't help. It doesn't help people to think. And really, safeguarding training and support is all about thinking and using your initiative. Give opportunities for people to think and reply and respond to you. This is why professional discussions are really, really important. Hold back. Don't give everybody the answers. I think we do that too quickly. And that would be one of my main messages from today. Use real life scenarios. We've talked a bit about that from your setting and revisit and apply that learning. Really, really important to do that. And reflective practice. What will you do differently tomorrow? Allow people to make mistakes, allow people to put themselves into challenge. And that's how we all learn. That's how children learn, and we all know that. And help people to make, not say help people to make mistakes, but you know what I mean. There will be problems that come up that you probably know are going to happen, but let them do that. Let them find out for themselves, because that truly is the only way that people learn. What will you do? What will this look like in the future? And have what's called a professional discussion. I have a professional discussion form in my cycle of supervision documentation, and I do highly recommend that you have professional discussions either in between or to complement your supervision cycle. Clear the clutter. So start with the end in mind. What do you want from your internal continued personal and professional development? I love putting a P in there for personal development. I really believe that if people don't develop personally, they don't develop professionally. And when you get to know your team in your starting point supervision and your induction, consider really talking to them about where they're at and their lives and how they played when they went to school. All of those things just suggest that you really want to know someone, that you really want to feel that they belong. You really want to, you'll know through those discussions what people's beliefs are. And it's their beliefs and their ability to take action that you really want. You could have someone that comes to you with numerous qualifications and training certificates. But if they don't have the beliefs and aren't able to take action, they are useless to you. They really are. Review all your subscriptions, your newsletter, your use of social media. There is a lot of noise out there, and I absolutely appreciate that. And I also appreciate that I am part of that noise. But have a look at all where you're getting all of your information around training and support and guidance, and choose wisely. Slim that all down. I'm guilty of this. I have loads of subscriptions and newsletters and use social media, but I absolutely know that we need to slim that down. And I have done a declutter of all of my emails. So I'm not reading all of this stuff because it just diverts you from training and supporting your team. Start your AI journey. I know a number of you on this call have already started your AI journey. That really will free you up and give you time. And training and support for your team is the time that you is time that you need. It's investment, not only in your growth as a provision, but also your team's personal and professional growth as well. And AI can absolutely save you time. And I'm very happy to take questions around that at the end. Work on your own personal growth and development. Make sure that you're motivated. Make sure that you are the one that takes action. You know so much. Make a list of everything that you know, and refresh yourself. Not necessarily reinvent yourself, but give yourself a big pat on the back and a big deep breath and think about things differently. And clearing the clutter is definitely part of that. Refer your team to trusted sources of information and know those trusted sources of information yourself. Anybody that's hopefully everybody's on my email list, but I constantly circle back to government guidance, the EYFS, and Ofsted guidance. The government have got something called Help for Early Years. If you haven't looked at it, it's an amazing resource. There are many, many, many different aspects of it. And it could be that in supervision, you just want to signpost somebody to finding out a bit more about sustained shared thinking. They absolutely don't need to go on a 3 hour training about that. They don't need to do a click and collect about that. They might just need to read what's on the government website about sustained shared thinking. But know where those trusted sources are. There's a lot of information in Birth to Five right at the beginning that I think we all gloss over. Rereading Development Matters or Birth to Five or What to Expect When is ongoing training. We have those documents. They're all written, they're out there for us to use. And sometimes I think we're all reaching for something else. And actually, it's right here in front of us. Some of us who are on the call might remember all those national strategies documents that we used to get plop into our inbox, and they might even be on your shelf. So have a look at those too. They're really important documents. A lot of them are still very relevant. Create a system that works for you to set reminders. So sometimes if somebody's training has run out, for example, like pediatric first aid, and you've done that, I would absolutely send myself an email and schedule it for couple of years' time, to set yourself reminders. I'm a big fan of a big diary, also a big fan of the whiteboard. Whatever system that you use to give you reminders is entirely up to you. Do make sure you've got a good cycle of supervision that will really help you moving forward, and that is all training. And and manage that continued ongoing development is really, really important. So I do have much more information in the VIP circle. It's a product that still is continuing to develop. I will send you an email link after this, and you can absolutely explore. I'll do another recording about that actually, and do have a look. And if you want to join the VIP circle, it's currently £27 a month. It will be going up. I really want members in there that I know really well, which I think is really important. This is not going to be a membership for people that I don't know. There is a free version, and I probably don't know many of those people, but that's just £1, and there's some sort of limited access in the free version. But you're very happy to join the free version. But the £27 a month version, I talk to you regularly. I get to know you, and I get to, and you can ask me questions, and you can also say, I wonder if Alison's got an induction checklist. Well, you absolutely know that I have, and if not, I will certainly develop one. So that's working very well. So last slides really, what do you need right here, right now? So understand what's changing, review that consultation document in the EYFS, consider how these changes might impact your practice, communicate those changes to your colleagues and the teams that you work with really succinctly. Ensure that all your policies and procedures are updated. Review your training plans. Ensure all staff, including the DSL, has receives appropriate training, and that takes place in many different areas. As we've explained, it could be reading something, signing up to your local authority updates, etc., etc. Definitely sign up to the NSPCC updates as well. And obviously, that new criteria is in Annex C and it's renewed every 2 years. Do ensure that relevant staff, including students, volunteers, and apprentices, get that paediatric first aid qualification. Anybody who delivers paediatric first aid currently is super busy, I am absolutely sure, but it's not an area of expertise I want to go into. Review your safer eating practices. We've got the nutrition guidance to help you with that. We've also got some references to that in the EYFS. Consider, I think this is one of the most things that people are working on that I know, is that balancing children's privacy with safeguarding. And My next session will probably be around whistleblowing. That is a massive subject, I have to say, but keep in touch, read my emails, and obviously register for that when that's out. So Ofsted, we haven't got that particular documentation yet, but they are always going to be looking for an open and positive safeguarding culture. And that safeguarding of vulnerable children is really important. But know your team who are vulnerable as well, because there's lots of people out there who are finding life really difficult, and people are vulnerable in all sorts of different ways as well. Knowing your team, I can't stress that enough. And find safe and supportive CPD in all of its forms, not just that click and collect. So we are going to, if you have, I'm going to pop an induction checklist in the chat in a minute when I stop recording. So thank you for being here in person. You will get a free gift for doing that today. It's not going to be on the email. So if you're watching this on catch up, sorry for that. It's going to be just for those that turned up today. And if you haven't already, and you've found this talk and this little session by chance, someone's forwarded it to you, which I'm very happy to do make sure you're on my email list. Thanks so much.